How's it going? Welcome to Chats with Spencer. My guest this week is a K-pop cover artist, but she does things a little bit differently because she comes up with her own English lyrics to K-pop songs. She is Emily Dimes. Emily's super creative, very talented, and her covers really capture the essence of the originals. Make sure to check out Emily's YouTube channel for some great covers. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Emily. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm happy you're here. So, Emily, I just want to kick it off with a question. It's kind of a broad question, but can you maybe let viewers know a little bit more about yourself in the sense of where you grew up, what kind of kid you were, and maybe some of the things you were interested in, and if you maybe have a story that kind of sums up what kind of kid you were?
Yeah, sure. That is definitely a broad question, but I like it. So, um, growing up, I feel like I was just like a very kind of cheerful, laughy child.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been told by my parents I was a bit of a nightmare sometimes. I get stroppy if I didn't get my way, and
Hmm.
a bit of a diva, I guess, is how
Hmm.
my mom would describe me. But yeah, I was always walking around singing and dancing to myself. One of those typical cases where I was singing before I was talking. I also did a lot of baking with my family growing up, so I feel like that's a kind of defining part of my childhood as well.
Okay. In terms of you said baking, is there anything that comes to mind that you like? That maybe a recipe you made a lot with your family.
Yeah, we made a lot of cakes.
Okay.
Yeah, just like vanilla cake, lemon drizzle cake, chocolate cakes. I think we would often obviously make cakes for birthdays. That's a kind of
Hmm.
typical thing, but also just at the weekends, you feel like baking and you go for it. We did some other things as well, like brownies and shortbread and the occasional cheesecake. But yeah, cake is the thing that comes to my mind.
Okay. Did you do a lot of baking, like much of the rest of the world during the initial lockdown? Because I know there was at least I'm in Canada, and there was a big shortage of baking powder for the longest time, and flour as well. So I'm just wondering, were you part
Yeah,
of that group of people?
a little bit. I think I took my time getting into it, but
Mhm.
I definitely made my share of banana bread. I feel like there was just so many pictures online with banana bread, and I became one of those people. It was nice feeling like I was part of something.
All right, Emily, maybe you can share a little bit about your passions outside of music and maybe what you like to do just on your time off.
I feel like, I mean, a lot of what I do at the moment is studying, so it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to remember what else I can do in my
Fair.
free time. But I like, in times when I'm not having to do reading for university, I
Hmm.
like just like reading books for fun, and I like just like walking around in nature. There was a time for a while when I did some dog sitting, and like
Okay.
I know that wasn't technically free time because it was a job essentially, but like stuff like that where I get to hang out with animals, I love that. And a bit of baking when I find the time. I watch some TV, but it's generally like music related TV, like reality show style. So
Any particular authors that stand out to you?
Um, I really like, there are a few that come to my mind. I think my favorites are probably Erica James and Marianne Keyes and Cecilia Ahern. I hope I pronounced those right. I kind of just love things that feel very real, like young adult women's novels, like humorous, but also just kind of um, very introspective in a way. I think one
Hmm.
of the reasons I really like Erica James is I feel like every character in the novel always like you always get an insight into what they're feeling, even if it's
Okay.
like a passing character who's there for one paragraph. It's just that actually reading her books made me think a lot more about how obviously everybody's different and we all have different perspectives and different ways of looking at the same issues, and just kind of opened my mind to like a lot of different perspectives. So yeah.
So, Emily, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your origins in music? So, I was just before this interview, I was listening to your Q&A. I know you mentioned that story about you being 2 years old singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" before going to sleep. Pretty funny. And but just maybe elaborate more on that? I know you said you joined a choir, then you started taking piano, but maybe just give us a bit more detail if you could.
I feel like music was always just a very natural path
Mm-hmm.
for me to take in a way. Like when I was growing up, my mom would always be playing music loudly in the kitchen, and we'd
Mm-hmm.
have like mini dance parties, kind of links to the baking stuff too. Like when we were waiting for something to finish cooking,
Mm-hmm.
just put on
Okay.
music and have a dance for a while. And yeah, I think my school definitely like encouraged me to do a lot of singing just through choir and stuff. I actually remember because I always said I wanted to be a singer, but
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was like 9, everyone wanted to be a singer. It wasn't very
Mm-hmm.
special. But there was one music lesson I was in, and we were all singing a song. I don't remember which one. And the teacher stopped and pointed kind of in my general direction and said,
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, your voice is really good. Can you come out here and sing?" And then the girl next to me said, like, "Oh, me." And I was kind of thinking, oh, I'm really disappointed. But then she actually said, I felt a bit bad for her, for this
Mm-hmm.
girl next to me as well, because the teacher said, "No, actually, I meant Emily." And then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, maybe I actually have something. And she got me to come out to the front and sing the song as a solo. And I think she realized she put me on the spot, and I was very kind of taken aback.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit nervous, but that was the first time when I thought, actually, maybe there is something here, and maybe I could make something of that.
Do you remember maybe any of your, I guess not quite that, but your first formal performance?
Um, the first one I remember was, I think, the year 5 end of year show. So I would have been, well, like 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot remember how it goes now, but it was called The Son of God. It was a religious piece that I
Mm-hmm.
sang at, my nice, my Christian school. And I was given this song to do as a solo. And that was my first time really performing properly. I
Mm-hmm.
also remember one time on holiday, there was a talent show. But I can't remember how old I was, whether this was before or after. But I convinced my sister and a couple friends we made on holiday to join this talent show with me because I really wanted to like sing and dance. And I was very young, but I really wanted to go into this talent show. And then I remember we got on stage and something went wrong. I think like I think there were 4 of us, and one of them forgot their lines or kind of didn't come on at the
Mm-hmm.
right time or something. And I just kind of freaked out and didn't know how to deal with something going wrong on stage at the time. And I just kind of stormed off and like ran away and hid. And then my poor sister was like, I got convinced into doing the show that I didn't want to do, and now I've got
Mm-hmm.
to finish it without the person who wanted to do it. So that was a bit of a mess. But the first successful one would have been the one at school.
Well, the important thing is you persevered and you continued performing afterwards.
Yeah, I think I learned my lesson from that. I learned that walking off the stage generally wasn't a way to solve the issue.
So you kind of touched upon this already, but one of my questions I usually ask people, Emily, is there a song from your childhood that really you have a very strong memory of? And usually that's maybe a song your parents played, maybe something you heard on the radio, but for some reason there's this song is just really ingrained in you.
I feel like there are a few that come to mind.
Okay.
A couple that we would listen to in the car, like when we were just, driving to see family.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we listened to Keen's album quite a lot.
Oh,
So
okay.
Somewhere Only We Know,
Mm-hmm.
a classic. Yeah, that song is, I think, one of my dad's favorites, and we would sing along to every line. And we also had who was it? I think it's by Blue. It's called Stand Up, and I didn't know at the time that it was a kind of sexual song. And then when I listened
Mm-hmm.
later, I was like, oh, interesting. But I was obsessed with that song. And again, we'd sing along to that album in the car. And the one other song that really comes to my mind was There's Gotta Be More to Life by Stacey Orrico.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had like a Pop Princesses CD. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was my first CD that I actually had that was mine. It was bought for one of my birthdays. And I had like this mini kind of radio type thing that I had in my room. And I just
Mm-hmm.
like played that song all the time.
I mean, you answered my next question perfectly, which is my follow up is usually what's the first album CD that you
Oh,
asked for or bought or downloaded, and perfect.
there
You
you
got you.
go. I predicted it.
Uh, okay, Emily, what's one thing people might find surprising about you? So maybe it could be a hidden talent, an odd interest, just something along that line.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I'm kind of an open book.
Okay.
um, but I'm sure there must be something. That I'm making myself sound so boring right now, but gosh, I don't know. I know some people have been surprised that I listen to music other than K-pop, but I really don't think that's surprising. I think they just hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, that's fair. If you could visit any time period, so Emily, you're transported back. You're in a protective bubble where you're invisible to the rest of the world and you're safe. You go
Okay.
any point in time. Where do you go and why?
Maybe this is the uni work I've been doing lately speaking.
Okay.
I would be really curious to go back to like the Enlightenment period, like
Okay.
when all the philosophers were,
Hmm.
developing thoughts on instrumental reason. Like I think it would just be so interesting to hear that all beginning because I feel
Hmm.
like it's just kind of really carried through and is such a big part of like how we live today to kind
Hmm.
of see the beginnings of it and what things were like before and actually like you can hear about it theoretically, but to actually hear people speaking and living in a way where
Hmm.
like the general public mindset was just completely different. I think that would be really interesting.
And just along that line, if you could go back in time and witness any concert, what concert would that be?
Oh, oh my gosh. There are so many concerts which it would be good to see. We actually had tickets to see Michael Jackson. And then he passed away. And so obviously the
Oh,
concert
okay.
was cancelled.
Hmm. Hmm.
It would have been really cool to see him. But actually in some ways, the first couple concerts I went to, I was too young to remember. And I
Hmm.
remember my mom telling me, I was complaining that like, oh, it's such a shame I never got to see S Club 7 in concert. She was like, Emily, you did see them in concert. So it'd be nice to actually get to see them and remember it.
Hmm. That's a classic. S Club. That's bring it back.
Yeah. Bring it all back to you.
So, Emily, we're going to switch the pace a little bit, just some slightly less in depth questions. But if you want to elaborate, feel free to stop me.
Okay, sure.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
Favorite sports team? No, I'm not that into sport. Although one time I was able to see ice hockey live, and we
Hmm.
saw SKA in Russia, and that stuck with me. I have a hat with their name on, so I guess I'll say them.
All right. Cats or dogs?
Both. But I have a cat, so I probably have to say cats. But I always wanted a dog, and then we got a
Hmm.
cat, so
That's fair. Spring or fall?
spring. I like when everything's growing. It's like a new beginning.
Smarties or M&Ms?
Smarties.
Uh, one of your favorite movies?
Ah, it's a film question again. I can't pick one.
It just be anyone, just any movie that you enjoy.
um, um, Starstruck.
Uh, if you were to go on a vacation, would you prefer to go on an adventurous one or a relaxing one?
I think ideally it would be relaxing and adventurous. I don't want to go somewhere which is just like you just kind of sit there and it's like you could have been anywhere. Like you want to
Hmm.
go there for a purpose and actually like see what life is like, but in a relaxing way.
Okay. Uh, what was one of your favorite childhood TV shows?
The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
If your next meal could be anything in the world, what would it be?
See, the thing is, I just ate lunch and I really want dessert, so I'm just gonna say strawberry tart crumble.
What's your go-to snack at the corner store?
um, Galaxy Caramel.
If you were in a K-pop band, what would your position be?
Main vocal. No hesitation.
What's one of your favorite covers you've ever seen?
Favorite cover I've seen. Oh, that is a good question. There are so many really, really good covers. Are we talking about K-pop or just in general?
They could be anyone. That's all right.
Okay, okay. This is good, but it also broadens it too much. I seem to have a problem with quick fire questions.
It's
Sorry.
okay, no problem.
um, oh my gosh. This isn't a specific cover, but I really like in general if somebody takes a song and kind of completely changes the vibe of it. I
Hmm.
actually I don't remember the name of the song, but I saw on Youth with You season 3, I think it is, which is on
Okay.
at the moment, the Chinese reality show. There was one of the auditions where someone took like this song that's usually really like sweet and cute, and they kind of made it this like angry rock song. I think things like that are really cool.
Okay. What's your favorite song to perform?
My go-to was always Wings by Little Mix.
Okay. So I'm just gonna go a little more specific into K-pop. Just I'm going on some of the groups you mentioned. So just let me know your bias in each of these groups. Dreamcatcher,
Sua,
Red Velvet,
Wendy,
Oh My Girl,
Yua,
and Twice.
Dahyun.
Nice. Um, and do you have a favorite song from each of those groups?
A favorite song overall is so difficult because it also depends on my
Hmm.
mood. Um, Recently, I've really been liking "Can't Get You Out of My Mind" by Dreamcatcher.
Hmm.
There's something about it. I just love it. Wait, who was I can't remember.
Red Velvet.
Okay, oh, Red Velvet. All of their summer songs, just all of them. I had a period of time where I would sing mosquito every time I saw a mosquito, or somebody else had a mosquito bite. It
Mm-hmm.
started to really annoy people, but maybe that one. Um, oh my girl, I think it has to be the fifth season.
Hmm.
And Twice. There are a lot of different songs. Like they've gone into so many genres.
Yes.
A bit like Red Velvet as well. Like they've kind of really like yeah. But I feel like Twice have really kind of tried everything by this point. My current favorites probably Get Loud.
Okay. And just on the on the topic of Red Velvet, how excited are you for Wendy's solo? I think it's coming out next month, I believe.
Yeah, I'm insanely excited. I have missed her voice so much. I was so disappointed last summer when like not disappointed, but like it was a shame that we didn't have like a Red Velvet summer comeback. Obviously, it just couldn't
Yes.
happen. Like there was a subunit, but the vibe was different, and it just and like obviously my bias is Wendy, so it was a bit sad not to hear her, and I just can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah, Wendy's my bias as well, and I just missing her for all of 2020 was it just felt so like Red Velvet was not the same. Not to say that they did group activities really, but
Yeah.
it would have
No,
been nice
exactly.
to see her.
Yeah, I get you.
All right, Emily, if you could cover one album from start to finish, every track, what album would that be?
I've actually thought about doing this for a couple albums, and then
Oh, nice.
it just hasn't happened. Let's not say never. It
Okay.
hasn't happened yet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I I think it has to be one of BTS's albums. So I feel like their albums always have such an impact on me, and then I kind of want to do something with every song. Um, let's say the one I made the most progress with it was Love Yourself Her, and I
Mm-hmm.
still kind of I like the idea of actually going back and kind of finishing that off and like doing the full album, because the concept was also amazing, like the idea of we should all treat ourselves better. I think like if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to spend the time putting all of the songs together from an album, then it should be for a really worthwhile cause like that.
Sounds good. Uh, so Emily, what is your K-pop origin story? I'm just gonna go over what you can learn from your interview. I know you mentioned that you heard it at school, like two 30-second clips from I think it was BTS. I can't remember the other band, and then eventually you heard it at a birthday party, and then that kind of like got you rolling. But maybe you can just talk about what bands you initially got into, and like kind of like subsequently how you discovered the other bands.
Yeah, it was definitely BTS who I
Mm-hmm.
got into at first. And I think because the whole genre was new to me, I found it a bit overwhelming at first. I remember I started a playlist and it just had like 6 songs, and they were all BTS songs, like all title tracks. And I just
Mm-hmm.
put it on repeat, and I was just kind of, getting into the flow of it. Like, I really like to take my time with songs as well. If I'm listening to a new song and I'm getting into it, then I will listen to it a lot. Not necessarily on repeat, but like, every time you hear it, you kind of catch a different layer of the
Mm-hmm.
music. So I really enjoyed that. And then gradually my playlist expanded um to like 40 songs, but they were still all BTS songs. And I was like, I need some I need some variety, right?
Mhm,
This is good, but this isn't, where I want to be. And I looked up, I think part of it was YouTube recommendations, but also I
mhm.
asked a couple of my friends for recommendations. And I checked like a Mama Winners playlist and found some
Okay.
really random songs. Like I found Ailey through that. I found Icon, who I don't listen to as much anymore, but I really liked their first album. I, found a few groups kind of through playlists like that. But I wanted to find a girl group that I liked as much as BTS.
Hmm.
I kind of didn't have an instant connection with any girl groups. It was they were much more kind of they really grew on me. I did have an instant connection with Blackpink, but at that point they hadn't debuted, so I was just
Oh,
kind of
okay.
yeah, I was going through loads of different girl groups, and just kind of I found like a couple songs that I liked from all of them. But in a way, I think that meant that I now listen to girl groups more just because I know a lot more of them, and I really kind of got into all of them quite gradually. Um, Whereas like with BTS, they were always just kind of my favorite, and I didn't have as much of a reason to kind of go into other groups. Not to say that I don't listen to a lot casually, but yeah, I think that's probably the gist of it.
Would you say Dreamcatcher is your favorite girl group right now?
Yeah, definitely.
Would you attribute that to the fact that their sound is so different from the other groups?
I think not necessarily the fact that it's so different from other K-pop groups, but more
Hmm.
just kind of it's very much the sort of style of music that I like, and also just their vocals are. I mean, a lot of vocals in K-pop are very good, but something
Hmm.
about them just kind of really drew me in. And like, sure, part of it was the concept in the beginning; it made them stand out.
Hmm.
But a lot of it was, the dance moves. I felt like sure they were doing something a bit different, but at the same time I wasn't necessarily comparing it to other girl groups. It was just kind of more like I felt that kind of connection. And to be honest,
Hmm.
part of it was also I remember I covered their debut song in like my girl group week
Hmm.
like years ago now, but then people seem to like sorry people seem to yeah, I got more kind of response on that video than I expected to. More
Okay.
people watched it than I thought they would,
Hmm.
considering it was a new group. And quite a few people said, "Oh, can you cover their newest song, Good Night," which had just come out. And I think actually a lot of me getting into them was kind of encouragement from people who watched my
Oh,
videos.
okay. All right, that's fine. So for anybody who hasn't seen one of your videos, Emily does K-pop covers. She has her own original music as well. But in regards to her K-pop covers, the difference is Emily kind of does her own translation of the songs. So I'm just wondering, how exactly does what exactly is the process for coming up with a cover? How maybe the timeline and just yeah, walk us through the process.
Yeah. Usually I start with lyrics.
Hmm.
A lot of when I listen to a song, like I really want to sing along to it straight away. And a big reason I started the translation covers in the beginning was that I couldn't speak Korean at all.
Hmm.
And I thought if I want to sing this, I don't want to completely butcher the pronunciation and
Hmm.
offend people. That's the last thing I would want. So I need to figure out a way to kind of do it in my own style. So yeah, but I think probably just automatically because that's how I always did it. I'll still start with the lyrics. I
Hmm.
I understand a bit of Korean now, so sometimes I'll hear a line and it's already kind of like
Hmm.
creating itself in English in my head. And then after that, like yeah, after the lyric section, or shall I go into depth with
No,
like
no, for sure. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So if there's like an English word that the line ends in, then obviously I'll try and rhyme the kind of
Hmm.
corresponding line to the English word. But otherwise, I try and keep the sounds kind of similar to the Korean ones.
Okay.
I didn't always do that, but then I realized that it sounds more natural to people who are familiar with the original song if the vowel sounds are quite
Hmm.
similar. So I kind of try and force that a little bit if I can. I really enjoy arranging lyrics anyway, and getting translate individual words and figure out the kind of the aura that it carries and ways that you can try and express that in another language is like, it will always leave something to be desired, but I think the process is really, really fun and cool. So yeah, once I've kind of got something I'm semi happy with, like I never finish the lyrics properly. I always call it the provisional version. And then I'm never happy with anything, but I'll use that to then do a piano version. And yeah, I just kind of, I like playing around with the chords to begin with, try and figure out like what the key is, what the main chord sequence is, and then kind of the bits in the instrumental that really stick in my head, I'll try and then kind of mimic them on piano, and then just figure out like which octaves, like, do I want this piano instrumental to sound really high above a low vocal? Would that be interesting? Or do I want it really backed up by like a heavy bass? So I'll kind of go through and just play around with a lot of different things and just have fun singing it to myself for a couple of hours, and I guess see how it comes out. And then I guess the next stage would be just practicing and then recording. Yeah, so I try and practice it well enough that I can just do it all in one take, and then there we go.
And how long does that process usually take, approximately?
Okay, well, let's say average probably a couple of hours for the lyrics, and then maybe 3 hours for arranging the piano, and then probably at least like 5 hours just practicing it.
Yeah.
And then usually the recording, I try and practice it enough that I can actually record not for too long, because otherwise I get extremely frustrated with myself. The longest I've ever recorded was 3 hours, but that's too much. Way too much. More like an hour and a half maximum these days. Yeah, because the thing is, every time it went wrong, I would just kind of get more angry. And then like when I'm kind of, nowadays, if it's been like an hour and I haven't managed to get the tape, I'll either think, okay, I'll do one more, and if it really doesn't work out, then I'll stop, or I'll just like take a tea break, take some relaxation time, because you know, you can't force it, can you?
Are there any videos that you've released that are out there right now that you look back on and you're like, oh geez, I don't know what I was thinking, or something along that line?
Quite a few, and maybe it's just I do have the tendency to be quite hard on myself, but like especially I upgraded my equipment like a couple of years ago now, and I just, for ages, I just couldn't figure out my way around the mic and like how to kind of, and I listened back to some of the recordings and I'm like, this is a shame, because the arrangement I'm happy with, but the audio, just like, there's something really off, like it sounds kind of tinny, or like the piano is basically inaudible above the voice, and then it's a bit like or then like I do a belty note and I didn't kind of like turn down the volume, and then it's just like everything's a bit kind of off. I'm still not amazing at mixing now, but I've definitely got a lot better since then. So I feel like there are actually a few songs for that reason I kind of want to re-record, but you know, finding the time, and it probably makes more sense to do newer ones. But yeah, when I look back at like my Fake Love cover, my Egotistic cover, and kind of a few different ones in that sort of time, yeah, that's my opinion. I try and appreciate the fact that, you know, it was a learning process.
Yeah, it's good to look back and see that, okay, maybe I wasn't the greatest at the start, but hey, I'm here now, so.
Yeah, exactly. I try and have that mindset instead.
So I just got to ask, because you mentioned that you're really into music reality TV shows, and by any chance, did you watch Produce 48?
Yes, I did, yeah.
So I got to ask, I don't know how big of an IZ*ONE fan you are. I know you've done at least one or two covers, I believe.
Yeah, I've done one cover, and then I had kind of plans for another two covers, but they haven't happened yet, so stay tuned.
Okay. Something to look out for. But my question is, have you been following them at all? I don't know if you saw any of their footage from their final two concerts, but it was super heartbreaking, because for anybody who's unaware, they're disbanding pretty much at the end of March. Yeah, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a shame. I mean, it's not we all knew they were going to
Hmm, hmm.
disband. I think all of the comments on all of their videos were saying eyes one permanent, but I didn't really I didn't really think that that would happen because it's not the contract that was made with the companies, etc., etc. And I am looking forward to what they'll do now, like which groups they'll become part of, or will they be soloists? Who knows? I am into Eyes One, but I didn't actually watch Produce 48 at the time.
Oh, okay.
I kind of binged a lot of Produce 101.
Hmm.
And so I actually I was just about to watch the final when I heard like about the controversy of like the rigging the votes.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I kind of took a slight break and I was like, oh, now I feel a bit weird about finishing the show. But I mean, they're still an amazingly talented group, and obviously none of that was their fault. But so that was sort of the timeline for me. I loved La Vie en Rose when it came out, but I
Yes.
kind of
Hmm,
hadn't like kept track.
hmm,
I'd heard their other title tracks, but I hadn't like listened to their full
hmm,
albums.
hmm.
So yeah, I went back and kind of ended up getting really into them, especially with their Fiesta comeback. So that was kind
Mm,
of
mm.
more when I got into them. But yeah, I think it's always a shame like when a group you like disbands or when a member leaves, but hopefully they'll be on to better things now. So just gotta hope for the best for them. But yeah, I'm glad that we got a lot of time with them.
But I gotta ask, as you're watching and then you found out kind of like the controversy, how like did it make sense at the end where you're like, oh, these people, not to say anybody in the group is undeserving by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's a great group. They all bring something to the table. But at least for me, I didn't even watch Produce 48, but I know kind of like the ending rankings, and some of them really didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
uh,
I have to say I definitely I was surprised, but I was less surprised than I would have been had I not known at that point
oh,
that
okay.
it had been rigged, if that makes sense. Like I think once I heard that, I realized like, okay, this isn't maybe gonna make as much sense as
Mm,
it
mm,
should, because the rankings just changed a lot. There were a couple of people who I wanted to I can't remember their names right now. I wanted them to make the group and obviously they didn't.
mm, mm,
And but like there was one girl who was like always in like the top, you know
mm,
the top, and then she didn't make it, and it just kind of thought like that doesn't make any sense. And there were some people like Cheon. I think she's got amazing vocals, and like
mm,
she can really show herself in Eyes One in their tracks, but I feel like in Produce 48 she never got the opportunity. So kind of without knowing Eyes One's discography to start with, it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting because she obviously is really talented and
mm.
deserves the place, but I feel like she didn't show that in the show. So how did that happen? But I think in a way, I was also a bit confused with the rankings in like the first Produce 101 because I went into that knowing IOI,
Mm.
and I thought that all of the people who got in would kind of have loads of screen time and be able to really show their abilities. And I kind of felt a similar thing where I think some of the people who got in hadn't been able to show as much of what they could do as I expected they would have done, considering I already knew what IOI was like as a group. Sorry, this is a very long-winded
It's
answer.
okay. I think the most unbelievable thing for me is for the drama having Cheon as the last person was it's just
Yeah.
like come on, she was definitely not last, and
Oh, she
all
deserved it so much. But I
mm,
I really believed I kind of believed the whole trajectory of I think in like the penultimate episode maybe
mm,
she kind of had a bit of a breakdown, and the trainers comforted her and said like, no,
mm,
you're really talented and you should have more faith in your abilities. And so she got more screen time through that, and I was thinking, oh, I'm so glad they finally gave her more screen time and kind of essentially showed a sob story that will get people to vote for her. And so
mm,
it doesn't necessarily work kind of that straightforwardly. So
mm.
yeah, she deserved it, like she
Oh
really really
yes.
did. I mean, yeah, I agree. As some of the editing and stuff was a bit iffy.
And I don't want to go on this topic too much, but I have to ask just because I have a feeling you're gonna have some good insight on it. Just in regards to 16, I assume at by this time you've watched 16 with
With
twice.
Twice.
So
I started 16 and I never finished it, but ask away.
oh no, I was just wondering. I never fully watched it. I just think it would have been an interesting experience to have experienced at the time of forming Twice. Just what I know now, obviously, but
Yeah,
that would
no,
have been very dramatic and very heartbreaking, I think, to watch live,
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember kind of going back to it once I knew Twice, thinking like, oh, this will be really fun to watch in
Mm,
retrospect. But I always intended to finish it, but I just kind of I think I wasn't like that familiar with Twice, and then I found out kind of what happened in the last episode and who had made it through to the last episode compared to who made it into the group. And I felt like
yes.
even though I already knew the group, I felt like there was a spoiler for the show. It just kind of annoyed me into like not watching it anymore. um, but like it was funny because when I was watching 16, I really liked Somi, and
Mhm.
IOI had just debuted like when I oh no, they hadn't just debuted, sorry, they were around and they were very popular when
Okay.
I started watching 16.
Okay.
And then I was talking to my friend about 16. I was like, oh, I really like this girl, and she was like, she's debuted, she's that girl in IOI. I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, she made it. And it was just, I don't know, it was just funny how kind of everything linked together, because I had no idea at that time about like the different companies or how the reality
Mhm.
shows work, so it was all a bit beyond me.
And just last reality show question: what is the best music show reality show that you've seen?
All of the ones that I've seen, I like for different reasons.
Okay.
But I think maybe just because it's the most recent one I finished. I was watching Youth with You season two, which made like the nine, and I really I really enjoyed that it wasn't kind of all focused on like drama, or that's not to say that all shows are focused on drama,
Mm.
but I just kind of felt like a lot of the contestants, like their outlook was very much kind of, isn't this an amazing experience that we all get to perform
Mm.
together and
Okay.
to all meet each other and spend the time. And I think a lot of it's probably down to the editing as well, but there was a lot more focus on like the group bond, and just kind of it felt very wholesome to watch. I just like all of the people there were also really talented, and some of the shows, like some of the performances have really stuck in my head. Like there were a couple that I keep going back to, but like something about it, the group of people and just the kind of way it was all put together, I just thought was amazing.
So Emily, is there one thing you'd like to achieve in your lifetime? I know you mentioned an album in your Q&A, but is there anything? I mean, you can elaborate on that or anything else.
Well, I think if we're talking about lifetime, it definitely has to be more than just one album.
Hmm.
I have higher hopes than that. um, let's say like 5 albums as like the sort of,
Okay.
yeah, the sort of goal. I would usually say a world tour, but I mean at the moment traveling is not really
Hmm.
looking too likely. But I think kind of aside from the music thing, I've always kind of liked the idea of writing a book.
Okay.
But like, yeah, I that's a kind of very separate thing to me. Just like kind of creative writing and like coming up with random stories and stuff has always been something I've enjoyed. And like, if one day I could have a role on the West End, I mean that's kind of coming back into music, but musical theatre. That would be one of those things. I actually used to have a list of kind of life goals in terms
Hmm.
of like different professions, and I
Okay.
also wanted to be an Olympic skier. um I didn't I remember watching the Winter Olympics one time,
Okay.
and seeing that there were no competitors from England, and I
Mm.
didn't realize for some stupid reason that there were kind of preliminary rounds and you had to reach a certain standard. I thought no one had applied, so I was like, oh, I'll do it.
Mhm.
I can do that. I can kind of ski.
Mhm.
I'll compete for England. And then later I was like, you know, that's a lot of work and not really something I care enough about. But yeah, we've got a lot of life goals in the bank there. If I ever get bored, or you know, if I achieve everything else, I've got things to fall back on.
Awesome. Maybe that Olympic gold, right?
Yeah, it could always happen.
Exactly. Emily, are there any words of wisdom or a saying you enjoy that maybe you try to live your life by?
I heard one very recently, which was enough not perfectionist. And that's maybe not kind of a typical life advice thing to give people, but I tend to be kind of so perfectionist that like I really don't want to do anything wrong, and sometimes that makes me very hesitant to try new things because I want to be good at everything I do. I think just kind of remembering that like it's not all about kind of you don't have to do well in everything. You know, what you do can be a learning experience. You can grow as a person, you can meet new people, make connections. Like there are so many things to live for. It's not all about achievement, and just kind of trying to keep an open mind and remembering that like it's not all about, you know, what you can say you've done at the end. Like a lot of it is really about the process, and you know, those small moments in life, you know, just like the time you went for a walk and you saw a squirrel eating a peanut and it just made you smile. Like the really tiny things that kind of make your day brighter every day are like the things that we should focus on. I think at the moment that's kind of where I'm trying to keep my mind.
Emily, maybe you can let us know where we can find you on YouTube and social media, and if you have any upcoming projects.
Absolutely. I'd be very happy to plug myself. Yeah, so I'm on YouTube at Emily Dimes, youtube.com/user/Emily Dimes. And I'm also Emily Dimes on Twitter and Instagram. On Facebook, I'm Emily Dimes Music. You can find me in any of those places. And as for projects, I've taken a little bit of a kind of accidental break so far from making covers, but I'm coming back to that very soon. There'll be new videos every Friday, and
Nice.
I'm also part of a group project, which is a fan project for the K-pop group The Boys. We're called Are Always. I'm a vocalist and a lyricist, so you should stay tuned because there are a couple covers, a couple things happening with that as well. So even when it's not obvious, I'm always working on stuff, and please look forward to some original music as well once I finish my degree.
Sounds good. I look forward to all the new stuff.
Thank you.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me. I had a really great time talking with you. It was always fun talking K-pop with another fan.
Absolutely. I had such a nice time. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Please check out Emily's channel. I'll have everything that she mentioned linked in the description below. Great artist, so creative. Like I said, she's translating these and making her own lyrics to these songs that really don't have English lyrics. So it's really great, and she's also just a great artist in general. So definitely make sure to check her out. Anyways, please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next video.